Black women and black men were never meant to compete. Competing was not our rhythm. Competing was not our design. Competition between us was manufactured. The system didn't just steal our land and labor, it stole alignment. It broke the masculine-feminine partnership that had always been the foundation of our families. They removed black men from the home with welfare policies that said, if a man lives here, we won't help you. They created a structure where the government replaced the father and then blamed black men for being absent. Right? Corporate America did its part too. They promoted black women over black men, not because they value black women more, but because division creates control, and because a black man with power is always a threat to the system. Suddenly, the woman making more money was told she was the boss of the house. Roles were distorted, respect got tied to income, power got tied to paychecks. And media plays its role too. In music, movies, talk shows, podcasts, all pushing the narrative that black men aren't enough, black women are too much, and somehow we're the problem, instead of systems that engineered the imbalance. This is why competing with each other violates the commanded law of correspondence and the law of rhythm. When the rhythm breaks between black women and black men, the rhythm breaks everywhere, in our money, in our homes, and in our legacy. Brothers, we need you. You are an essential part of this rhythm. Sisters were never meant to carry this all alone. When we restore the balance, we remember the truth. We were never meant to compete. We were meant to co-create. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and if you're ready to restore the rhythm.
All right. So I want to say this. First and foremost, I agree that men and women were not meant to compete. I also agree that, especially when you study history, you start to learn that a lot of division within communities, within society, in education, like a lot of division and indoctrination is manufactured for a certain outcome. And the outcome is to put or to press a certain people group, or whomever it is that they're doing this to, and then to exalt another to have power. And that's just one of things that have been practiced since time began. People have engineered and manufactured division so that they can retain power. It's nothing new under the sun. This has been proven throughout history. And our society is affected by this as well. So I agree with that. But I also want to expand the conversation here. I've been reading in Genesis, because we're talking about men and women not competing. I've been reading in Genesis, and it has been such a blessing to my life to read, especially the beginning when God created man and woman. And oftentimes what I'm realizing is that most of us don't remember that sin is in the picture. I really believe, from a lot of conversation I've had, from things I see and hear online, a lot of times sin is not being included in the equation. Even I was listening to her, she never mentioned sin. She mentioned, the manufacturing of division, the manufacturing of the breaking of homes, the manufacturing of positioning to where you have one gender being exalted so that they can then, have opposition with the opposite gender. But not once did she mention sin. To me, this is my thought process of it. This is my framework. This is how I see it. All those things are true. Manufactured. We're not supposed to compete. Women were being given the big jobs, especially in the African American community, and being the boss and power was tied to that. And there was oppression going on in our communities, just divisive things going on to keep power in certain people groups. I agree with that. But to me, all of that is low-hanging fruit in comparison. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it doesn't have great impact, but in comparison to sin, it's low-hanging fruit. You can always pick at, the things that are happening right there within hand's reach, or within our reach. But when you look at it scripturally, you realize in order to really heal this competition between men and women, it really comes down to but speaking to the sin problem. The Bible says when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit, if you're familiar with the story, read Genesis 3, chapter 3. They eat of the fruit, they're aware of sin. The consequences of their sin are established. One is that the woman's desire will be to be in power and to desire the man's position. That's one of them. So with that being innate in our sin nature, for women, it's always going to be this temptation to have power. Not to mention that men have consequences as well. And because of sin, men have failed to protect and love women the way we should in God's eyes. It's a lot. That's why I said we have to look at this on a deeper level. Until we address the sin in our heart, until we address sin in a broader context, like stop going for the low-hanging fruit and get to the root of this thing, get to the root of the tree, there's all these conversations of competition will always be, because it's like fighting the symptom rather than taking care of the virus. So yes, there is a problem with men and women competing with manufactured division. But if you can get to the point to where you show and demonstrate to people like, hey, this is a sin problem, and if you are carrying on in this way, you're in wrong standing with God, and then if they can agree to that, then you can begin to head towards the journey of fighting and pushing back against that sin. Because I don't care if you stop men and women from competing against each other, which it won't happen, but let's say you stop that, another symptom of the virus of sin will arise and become a problem. So what we have to do is, okay, let's speak to the low-hanging fruit. Let's chop off the low-hanging fruit. All right. But what we have to do is when we chop that off, we got to go for the root. And I would say go for the root first, because if you go for the root, the low-hanging fruit won't live. Even if, it's on a tree, it's going to die because it has no life. So I just wanted to expand the conversation to that, for you to consider as you reflect on this. Consider that it's not just competition. It's not just division. It's a sin issue. And we have to look at that on an individual level, saying, God, how am I being competitive to a woman, as a man, and then you as a woman saying, God, how am I being competitive with men? Help me, forgive me. And to understand that when God created man and woman, he created them for a purpose. The Bible says he made a woman to be suitable for a man, or corresponding to the man. And how I like to put this is, God made the man a left shoe, he made the woman a right shoe, so that they can walk together. But what often happens is when women want to be men, or in competition with men, and men are in competition with women, it's like you're walking around like a baby with your shoes on the wrong foot. You have, women are walking with two right shoes and men are walking with two left shoes. No, in order for a man and woman to coexist properly, purposefully, in unity, in a way that's pleasing to God, not in perfection, but in excellence, we must know that we were made to be corresponding to one another. I mean, it's the other part. When you look at the breakdown of that word, it's other part, opposite, and that's why I use the shoe analogy. Two right shoes aren't, you may walk, but your walk gonna be horrible. It's gonna be stank and you ain't gonna get as far. But if you have a left shoe and a right shoe, your walk will be more comfortable. You'll have challenges, but you'll be able to overcome them. The shoes will be good for your feet. But if you walk around here with two left shoes and two right shoes, trust me, you're not going to be able to get where you're going. I say this again and make it the end of what I'm saying. At the end of the day, the root of the issue is sin. If we get to the root of the issue, it'll solve a lot of the low-hanging fruit. All right, as I always say, You can check us out online. We're on all the platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Make sure you subscribe if you like this content. We got merch. Check us out at www.there'shopebrand.com. And that's all I got to say about that. I'll catch y'all in the next video.